Memory transcription subject, Governor Tava of the Venlil Republic. Date, standardized human time, February 5th, 2137. Secretary General Zhao leapt into action, declaring that human security had the situation under control. My fur bristled from fear before I noticed that the Terran leader seemed more concerned about our guests' reactions than the Arxur intrusion. A carnivorous predator remained on the landing ramp, and I swore I spotted Adastra using its forehead as a seat. The beast's maw hung open, leaving me to spot a signature chipped tooth. Isif, what is he doing here?
This was not a planned visit.
Zhao barked.
I guarantee my men can keep you safe. I also swear to give a full explanation and accounting for our security lapse. We have nothing to hide from anyone. Please, I ask a few minutes to sort this out.
Ambassador Koji was flapping her wings with irritation.
I knew you were partnering with the Arxur and deceiving us.
They were not invited. You can interrogate me to your heart's content, but I ask you to merely allow me to present the facts and ensure your safety. This is the UN-friendly commander I mentioned earlier that went to Malu. I spelled out the truth in exact detail. You each came all the way here, so please give me a proper chance to detail the facts. Now, excuse me 1 second.
I was the only one who dared to creep forward, getting myself into eavesdropping range as Zhao approached Isif. Other diplomats seemed terrified for the Secretary General approaching a carnivore, whereas Koji and the Dwerten Shield representatives looked as though they'd finally caught humans in the act of conspiring against prey. The Adastra perched on the Grey's head was the object of my curiosity. Who was she, and why was she so serene in the presence of a sharp-fanged predator?
What the fuck are you doing here?
Zhao hissed, echoing my concerns.
Are you trying to cripple the United Nations' reputation? Also, if Betterment gets wind of you showing up here, we could be dragged into hostilities we can't afford.
The Adastra glowered at the human, speaking in Isif's stead.
We'd like to work together as allies, so your people need to stand against Betterment, not just the Kolshians. If we want peace, it's time for the Arxur to make amends. We want to talk to the delegates and explain how the rebellion opposes the Dominion.
Is that so? You're out of your mind if you think these herbivores will even listen to the idea of working with you, Isif.
I do not think that it will work, but I have been persuaded to try.
Isif growled.
I am not so foolish as to think I could join your union. Would it be so wrong for me to say a few words and open some channels? I cannot fight the Dominion alone, and I do not wish for this war to persist between us and the Leaflickers.
It's going to be a nightmare to clean up this mess without allowing you to speak. Getting them to join up with us was going to require nothing short of diplomatic perfection. Now they're watching me chat with an Arxur. If I don't get rid of you soon, guests will start walking out of the summit.
Please, Secretary General Zhao. They have already seen me, yes? I wish to say a few words, as Noah did on Arthur. It cannot make things worse.
The human leader stood seething for several seconds and locked eyes with me. I hesitated before signaling my approval with my prosthetic tail. Zhao shook his head at the ground, failing to conceal that he was visibly upset. The United Nations had put a lot of stock into this summit, and now it would be spent justifying why Earth was colluding with the Arxur. After taking a moment to collect himself, the Primate turned to address the diplomats.
I don't believe I'm even passing this on to you, but the Arxur wishes to say a few words. I can attest that we'd make sure he doesn't set a foot wrong. We will not let him stay at the summit long, but you may wish to hear what he intended to say. Perhaps, if only, to pass judgment on us. I wish to give you all the facts and all the angles.
Zhao said. Gajid Minister Kiri looked outraged.
Isn't that the monster that destroyed the cradle?
The one who kept us as food.
Zerillian Prime Minister Braylon chimed in. Noela, the Crocodile separatist, squawked with fury.
You should gun that mass murderer down on the spot!
Isif stared at the floor as the crowd moved from a fearful state to jeers and calls for execution. It was obvious that Zhao was unwilling to shoot Isif, even if it would calm the mob. However, any attempts by the humans to defend the Arxur were going to collapse the summit. I'd told that grey outright after his empathy test that I could never forgive him. That hadn't changed, and collaboration between his faction and the Venlil would stay pragmatic rather than friendly. However, the only way to save this gathering was for me to speak up in the Terran stead. "Silence!" I shrieked, swishing my prosthetic tail with raw emotion. Venlil were the ones who were the delicacies of his sector, and who were tormented by unspeakable cruelty. I lost my pride and joy at the age of 6 to Isif, but I say you should hear Zhao's explanation. The dying wish of Elias Meyer was for peace between us and the Arxur. It's my wish now too. President Kupo stamped a massive paw.
Why, Tava?
I want the Greys to stop attacking us. I want the Dominion and the Federation gone. Most importantly, I want the truth to mean something for once in this star-damned galaxy. There is nothing I won't sacrifice for that. Secretary General Zhao clasped his hands behind his back, strolling forward.
Well said, Taba. Humanity is willing to give everything of ourselves for peace. Look at Ambassador Williams, who went to Arxur despite expecting to be killed, or worse. Why did you volunteer, Noah?
I said that if there was a single species like the Venlil, it was worth it.
Noah answered without skipping a beat.
I would have died for what we're doing here today. I would have gone to my grave, satisfied for a chance to maybe acquire peace.
The United Nations shuts no doors to anyone willing to mend the rift in this galaxy. Before we decide whether to permit Isif's request to parley, I ask you to lend your ears for 5 minutes. Follow me back to the banquet hall while we contain our visitor here, and you will hear the full scope of humanity's dealings with the Arxur.
The Terran's leader pushed his way through the crowd, who parted in a hurry to avoid the confident predator. I cast a scathing look at my fellow diplomats and hurried after Secretary General Zhao. If anyone could talk their way out of this disaster, it was the humans. Their silver tongues were the only reason a predator race swayed any allies to their side at all. I would do anything in my power to back up Earth's claims. The first order of business was ensuring that the diplomats would listen to us at all. The Zerulians, the Yotul, and surprisingly the Krukotl were the first factions to return to the meeting area. Mazik President Kupo, despite his former skepticism of everything the primates did, was coaxing the others to agree to the impromptu plan. The Salian and Iftali representatives herded former neutrals back, while the Dossa delegation managed to stop gawking at Isif's confidently waving hat. The most staunch human allies won't turn on the arboreal predators, not without hearing their side of the story. It's the others that will mean the difference between a sapient coalition of a dozen or so, one of 40 plus, or somewhere in between. The rest of the factions trickled in, grudgingly willing to hear the Earthling's explanation. The Gajid and Tilfish leaders seemed disgusted. The Cradle and Silis both had suffered devastating Arxur raids in the post-human era. The Thafkir looked terrified, which was understandable for a species that was nearly hunted to extinction. Recent revelations showed that the Federation conspiracy allowed their planet to fall centuries ago, making that loss even more needless. Meanwhile, Dwert and S.H.I.E.L.D. visitors appeared to be returning to solicit a confession from Zhao.
You just proved you'll choose the Arxur over us.
Koji stormed toward the stage, ruffled with disgust.
Here's the proof of you siding with them. Humans acting like them comes next. You lied about the extent of your involvement with them.
Zhao leaned toward the podium's microphone.
Settle down. My answer to you was the truth. I can recite it to you since I have it written down on these cards here. Does anyone recall the 3 things I listed as our intentions with the Arxur?
To win the war.
Zerulian Ambassador Chorson offered.
Close enough. I did say we'll do whatever we must to achieve victory. So I repeat, my 3 stated intentions were to use them to strengthen our position in the war, to liberate all sapient cattle in the galaxy, and to dismantle the Dominion where possible. Those are my exact words, and it was the truth. We interact with Isif to benefit humanity and sapient life as a whole.
Koji puffed out her feathers.
But you didn't say...
That's exactly what I said, verbatim. These proceedings are recorded. You can check for yourself. Nothing I said was a lie or predator deceit. I was quite candid about us allying with them, even naming the specific instance of Malu. Do you refute that claim?
No. But I refute that a Grey could ever benefit humanity, or any of us.
Really? So Isif lending thousands of ships to fend off Kolshians at Malu meant nothing? He's leading a rebellion against the Dominion, which you and I both thoroughly despise. That weakens the Arxur. The Battle of Silis ended bloodlessly because he intervened. Furthermore, since his uprising began, he's attacked cattle holdings and returned any herbivores he could acquire.
So you don't care about the Cradle at all?
Minister Kiri hissed.
Are you forgetting who fought the Arxur on the ground? There would be no Khajiit refugees without humanity. The fact that your remaining colonies have been left alone is because we retook the cradle and parlayed with ISIF. Again, I'll do anything to ensure your survival as sovereign entities.
The Khajiit representative backed down, but judging by the bristling spines, she was still simmering. Having bargained for every Venlil cattle in custody, I could attest to the benefits of negotiating with ISIF. Planting meat-growing factories on Skellige had been unsavory. Still, the exchange was a net positive for my species. Humanity and its allies needed every drop of cooperation they could scrounge up. General Jones had briefed me on the Arxur-Kolshian collusion to perpetrate the war, after assuring that I would keep it secret. It's a good reason to seek peace, and it redirects some of the blame, knowing the conspiracy wanted us to be attacked and butchered. Tell them why the Arxur still exist at all, I prompted. Zhao pursed his lips.
I was going to show them tomorrow, but very well, it can be bumped up the list. The Kolshians could have stopped the Arxur at any time. It wasn't just the Thafki's world they let be raided. It was every world that was ever attacked by an Arxur ship. If you don't believe me, hear it from Nikonis' lips.
The Secretary General hastily played the video clip intercepted from private communications when Chief Nikonis had called Prophet descendant Giznel over Arxur interference in the Battle of Milu. Gasps sounded across the hall, seeing the two rival powers conversing with each other. Diplomats' shocked expressions intensified as they processed what the two heads of state were saying. Betterment's leader griped that ISIF was promoting peace and satiety with his rebellion. Nikonis' reply was somehow more damning.
We need one predator around, and the last thing I want is a fucking Arxur asking for peace. It makes you look good.
The Kolshian had spat the words with disgust.
I know, it's sickening. A fat, lazy dominion without betterment. The war must continue for the sake of control. We're trying to hunt ISIF down, but he's been elusive.
Giznel responded. The tape finished playing, culminating in Nikonis' assurances that Betterment could continue their raids. The diplomats seemed appalled, hearing the Kolshians endorse the Arxur's barbaric cattle practices. Despite this knowledge not being new to me, it was an infuriating reminder of how the conspiracy wanted Venlil to be weak and afraid. My daughter's death was part of their moral imperative to fix the galaxy. What a joke.
ISIF seeking peace was a threat to our enemies. That's why humanity works with him.
Zhao planted both hands on the podium, and I could sense his binocular eyes surveying the audience.
Whatever the Far Soul, the Kolshians and the Dominion don't want, we do. They don't care how many lives are lost. They want to keep us all in this terrible loop so they can retain their power.
Nothing changes the fact that those Greys are people-eating monsters.
The Thafki ambassador objected.
It doesn't change everything ISIF has done.
You're right. But the Arxur weren't always like this. Just like all of you weren't always what they made you to be. If ISIF's movement keeps Nikonis and Giznel up at night, that's a damn good reason to keep it going. How do you think the Kolshians will feel, just seeing a peace-seeking carnivore address you?
I imagined Chief Nikonis would have a conniption if we allowed ISIF to present a statement to the delegation. My fantasy of the look on his face made me giggle under my breath, earning a strange look from Noah. Learning the atrocities inflicted on Skellige's inhabitants by the conspiracy had turned me spiteful. The Federation's founders deserved to pay for their crimes and have the crumbling of their ideology shoved in their faces. The unanimous opposition to ISIF's presence has dried up in a hurry. Sentiments seem more mixed now, though people like Koji and the Thafki aren't mollified.
I express my utmost gratitude for each of you listening to humanity's side of the story. Your consideration is all that I asked. Let's take a vote. Who would permit the Arxur to speak his piece?
Zhao asked. To my surprise, Noela's wing shot up before my own paw raised. The Crocodile must truly detest the Kolshians for what they did to Nishtal all those years ago. The Fissens seemed to weigh whether ISIF's speech could have economic benefits. However, when the Nivok ambassador raised a paw, the Fissens matched their rival's vote. Khajiit Minister Kiri surveyed the current tally before hesitantly throwing her paw into the air. Among other assenting voters were Tilfish Governor Burla, the Zerulian and Jotul camps, the Tardy Palton Party, the Quiet Takans, and the Salian Iftali delegates. There were some predictable parties among the naysayers. The Thafki for obvious reasons, and anyone affiliated with the predator-hating Dwerten Shield. Mazik President Kupo was the most surprising voter against the humans' plea. Koa's leader pledged full-throated support to the Terrans, but he rejected the idea of hearing from an actual monster. There was only so far he was willing to compromise his values. The split was visible through a survey of the audience, with there being a clear edge to those in favor of hearing Isif's speech. I released a breath I didn't know I'd been holding in. Per my quick estimate, about 2/3 of the audience cast a yes vote to Zhao's query. The Secretary General blinked with pleasant surprise before announcing that he would fetch Isif. Those who'd voted against this proposition looked extremely discontented. Koji was staring at her peers with a betrayed expression.
Fuck you, predators!
The Dwerton stormed up to Ambassador Noah, who was nursing his bleeding nose.
You say you want peace! You want rights! Then you bring the very monsters that steal both of those things here under false pretenses! How many aliens have you gotten killed dragging them into your war?
The Terran astronaut flinched, and I could tell that Koji struck a nerve with the war casualties remark. It was clear he was also frightened that the avian would attack him and make a scene. I moved in front of my human, resisting his attempts to pull me back. My paw curled into a fist as I leveled the Dwerton ambassador with a glare that could melt glaciers. The rest of the Venlil delegation, minus Glim, rushed to my side, forming a wall in front of Noah. I think you should leave, I told Koji coldly. Other human-friendly species mobilized into our formation. The unintimidating Zerulians among the first to stand by my side. Nuela was ready to go toe-to-toe with the other avian species, with the Crocodile delegates eager to atone for their past crimes. The Dwerton ambassador became visibly nervous when Kupo stepped into her path. The Mazik respected the results of the vote and didn't appreciate the scathing rhetoric towards sweet Noah. I recognized the irony, remembering how accusatory Koa's president had once been toward humans. The grey-feathered avian turned her beak up toward the sky.
We're leaving! The entirety of the Dwerton shield is leaving! We'll never be beholden to filth like you! And your pets!
Koji stalked away, followed by the handful of species from the Dwerton's alliance. Laulo, the Yotel ambassador, started cheering and imitating human clapping as she left. The avian looked like she wanted to bite his head off, though she marched off without another word. Secretary General Zhao peeked his head back into the room, just in time for the Dwerton to push past him. Judging by his weary grimace, the Chinese general put 2 and 2 together. The good news was that the Thafki and other non-shield dissenters remained present. With the troublesome Dwerton vacating the premises, it would lessen the chances of hostile responses to every word a predator uttered. The 38 species still present found seats far away from the stage and waited for Isif to be brought in for his speech. Whatever the chief hunter wished to say to us, I hoped it wouldn't cause any more diplomatic upheaval.